One thing I noticed, I know I brought it up to you one time when you came by to visit the car. I think I'm assuming the A&A Corvette's supercharger kit had some kind of solution for the power steering. I don't know. I mean, either that's the variable here that I'm not understanding, or perhaps your manifold, because where this the throttle body actuator, the motor here, sticks out is exactly where your power steering reservoir is supposed to be. So right now, and when you dropped it off, I noticed that this bolt is completely backed out. It can't fall out because the reservoir is in the way here, and it can't go in all the way because this bracket is attached to the pump, and you can't push it in enough to catch any threads because this long bolt goes through this alternator bracket and actually into the threads on the end of the cylinder head. That isn't so much a concern, except, well, I don't like stuff that's loose, and the whole reservoir, it's relatively jammed in there so it can't move, but it isn't actually fixed to anything. So this bolt's definitely an issue. And then more than that, like I said, if that was just the only thing, I wouldn't be too worried about it. But down lower, you can see the end of this bracket right here, right there. Right in here is another bolt hole, and that goes also into the cylinder head. That bolt is also missing. And you can see, it's kind of hard zooming in, but there is another part of the bracket on the power steering pump right here that has a hole in it that's same as this one is supposed to go through and get fastened down, but that's also not in there. So that is two of what really appears to be the major mounting points for this bracket that holds both the alternator and the power steering pump. So also, being that it's belt driven horsepower, I'm not really a fan of that, because maybe there's got to be one more bolt somewhere or something that's holding this bracket on, but as soon as that starts to wiggle loose, you're gonna have belt alignment issues, and can really do some damage if this belt gets chucked off and winds up and gets knotted up around some stuff, because it can definitely cause a lot of damage, and with the power you're making, it can happen in a fraction of a second. So like I said, either the manifold moves that throttle body in a way that was that's interfering somehow. I know you said you had that other Nick Williams throttle body. Maybe look into that a little bit. Another thing I know is for the C5, but the C5's Nitrous Express makes a nitrous spacer plate. I know that's not really applicable, but they actually make a kit. I'm not quite certain what it entails, but they make a kit that relocates slightly the power steering reservoir for that, because that spacer plate has fittings that come off of it, or maybe even like solenoids that mount to it, but it ultimately has the same interference issue here. So maybe look at that, or see if one way or another you can find something to solve this interference problem. Another idea is I can try and find a picture of what I'm thinking about, but a lot of times, with big turbo builds or whatnot, people will actually take and make a flange for where the throttle body was, and actually make just a pipe and ultimately move the throttle body. Like if you've seen some of the like carb style manifolds, and then they have that elbow, and then they put the throttle body up and away. That could definitely solve this too. If you get a flange made that kicks this out another 4 inches, you could put this reservoir right back where it belongs, and then put your Nick Williams up here, and then this still has to get bolted to the Nick Williams throttle body, but it'll be out in front of where this tank should be. So that's just another idea that I had. Also, because I know you said you speed density tuned it so you can get rid of the MAF, so you kind of already have it set up. You just take that out, and then, like I said, just make a little spacer, and then you can put the throttle body out a little farther. Just an idea, but I definitely wanted you to know about that, because I'm sure it's been that way quite a while, but it's just not quite right, and I'd definitely like to see it.